Okay.
Very good. Thanks, Labitza. So we'll call this meeting of West Perth Council to order. It's the second meeting, actually it's the third meeting, I guess, for the month of January. So just before we get started on our meeting, I would ask that council and staff, if you so wish, will have a moment of reflection. Okay, thank you. Okay, first item on the agenda then is confirmation of the agenda as it was circulated on the weekend. Do we have a mover and seconder to confirm the agenda? Councillor Rose and a seconder, Councillor Murray. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with the agenda as it was circulated? Okay, I don't see any. If you do find you're getting yourself into a corner as the meeting goes on, you can always declare it at that time. We have 5 items that make up the consent agenda here. Is there anything in the consent agenda that anybody would like pulled and dealt with separately, or would like more of an explanation on it or information? Okay, I don't see anybody's hand up, so I guess motion would be that we accept the consent agenda items 4.1 to 4.3 for information, and the minutes of the January 10th, 2022 regular council meeting and the minutes of the January 17th special council meeting be adopted. We have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Jankowski, and a seconder for that, Councillor Harold. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, we do have a few delegations here tonight to explain the grant process, and we'll get into that. We're going to try and keep it fairly tight and move along because we do have a fairly lengthy agenda here tonight. So the first item that I have up here for delegations is the Optimist Club of Mitchell, and it's Diane Josling, and I see her name here. So Diane, if you're ready, we will turn the floor over to you and you can explain the purpose of the grant that you require.
So Mr. Mayor and council, staff, and anyone else who's here tonight, thank you for this opportunity. Found out that we needed to do a grant application by your wonderful staff who tracked us down after we had handed in our traditional letter that usually has been given. And so we filled out the grant application. It's for the music festival. And typically council has donated over the last number of years, and I want to say the last 10 or 12 years, $300 a year. And so that goes together with all the other donations that we get to run our music festival. The music festival this year will be hybrid. So in 2020, we canceled right away because of COVID. We were right ready to go. Last year, then we ran a festival it was all online and it was just for solos. This year, we have a full festival planned. We're referring to it as hybrid. So people can do it either online or they can do it in person, should that be able to happen. Festival is moved down now to the end of April to accommodate with our adjudicator, as well as it gives us a little more time to see what's going to happen with COVID. Currently, we have at least 2 awards that are going out in the name of council. One is a $100 award for the most promising instrumentalist. We have another one that goes out if we have duets at the elementary level. And then we spread your donation around to other classes when they do the first, second, and third, and so on. So we'd certainly hope that council would see it appropriate to continue to support us. The Optimist Club of Mitchell has had the festival under its stewardship since 2002, 2003, and we inherited from the JCs when they disbanded. And financially, we're doing fine. We have a little bit of money set aside so that if another group ever needed to take over the festival and couldn't do a year of promotion, just as the Jaycees did with us. So they gave us $3,000 to start our first year. There was no time to do fundraising. And so we see that as appropriate for us then to make sure that if need be, we could do the same thing. So the upcoming festival is the 75th actual festival that has been conducted here in Mitchell. And we have well over 40 volunteers. We have 60 some donators, including yourself. On a good year, when we have the schools involved and we have a full-fledged festival, between 600 and 800 young folks move through our festival. And then, of course, in addition to that, we have that wonderful concert where the whole community comes in and watches our people. So we hope and we thank you for what's happened in the past, and we hope that you would continue to support the arts, and one of those arts being the Mitchell Music Festival. Thank you for the time to speak to you in person tonight this way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Diane. Anybody on council have a question for Diane when we have her here with regards to the festival? Okay, thank you very much, Diane. Appreciate your involvement here.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next group up is the St. Columban Soccer Club, and I understand their grant presentation will be made by Justin Dietz and Amanda Linton. And I'm just looking for some names here. There's Amanda and Jason. Sorry, I got a look here. I have Justin, but it says Jason on here. So, okay. If you two are ready to make a presentation, by all means, turn the floor over to you and go right ahead.
Excellent. Thanks, Mayor. So I'm Amanda Linton, and Jason is here as well for questions as needed. The St. Columban Soccer Club offers youth and adult soccer at several levels of skill and commitment. We have house league, local and travel teams for all ages. Over half of our 450 registrants are from West Perth. Soccer is an option for many families who are looking for a more affordable sport for children, for exercise, guidance, coaching, social interaction. We would use the funds to help keep our participation fees low to help provide more children and families an opportunity to participate. We'll also help towards replacement of equipment to ensure safety and ongoing maintenance of the soccer grounds and clubhouse as needed. In 2021, we were able to run most of our program on a shortened season, offering people one of very few opportunities for sport during the pandemic last summer. We weren't able to fundraise as we typically would in the past years and would appreciate your donation this year. In the past, West Perth has provided $500, which is the same as what Huron East contributes to our club.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Jason, do you have anything further you want to add?
No, Amanda did a great job there. All good here.
Okay. Anybody on council have any questions for Jason or Amanda? Okay, I don't see any. So again, I want to thank the two of you for making a presentation. It's maybe not in person, but it's the next best thing to it, and kind of puts a face with the name of the organization so that we are a little more familiar with what we're talking about here. So again, thanks, Jason and Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one up then is Mitchell Minor Sports, and we have Dean Smith is going to talk to us about the grant request from Mitchell Minor Sports. And I see Dean is on the screen here. So Dean, yep, you've unmuted. So yes, I turn it over to you and you can give us the good news and what you're going to do with the grant.
Okay. So again, Lori Chesel sends her regrets. She's taken over as the new treasurer for Minor Sports, but she had a conflict tonight. So I'm filling in for her. Second of all, I just want to thank council for their clear message on the ice situation with the latest lockdown and how that message went out. And so there was no misunderstanding of what the intentions were going to be with the ice in the arena over this unfortunate next lockdown that we've been going through. So again, thank you for that. So again, Minor Sports is making its annual request for assistance and funding on behalf of the 5 sports and the Umbrella Minor Sports Organization. Again, our typical registration sits at around about 810 registrations across all the sports. We are continuing to assist any family that is unable to participate in any sport. We do have a subsidy program. However, we do send everybody to the Jumpstart program first, if possible, for assistance and funding. The funding that we're looking for, again, equates to, that the council has got into recently doing pickleball and a number of other sports, works out to around about $3.75 per participant in a sport. So it's a small contribution towards helping to reduce the operating costs. Again, Minor Sports still operates under the umbrella where we share all of our website costs, our insurance costs. All of those things are applied to each of the sports, but we contribute towards those in order to achieve reductions in cost by pooling together our resources, et cetera. So again, I think our application again was for the $3,000 that we have asked for and have received for the last number of years. We'll admit that over this current season, we're still not too sure exactly what is going to happen with all of the sports. Last year, this season now, we were able to have 3 operating, but baseball and soccer right now are still in a situation of deciding what will happen once we get closer to the season. So they were suspended for the last 2. That's all I had to say. If you had any questions, I'm free to answer.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Thanks very much. Any questions for Dean on his presentation? No, no questions. Okay, thanks very much, Dean. Appreciate your presentation. Okay, the next one up is Chris Watt, and he is here for the Mitchell Fish and Game Club. So Chris, I see you're here, so by all means take the floor over, and it is all yours. I see Chris's name. Yep, there he comes. There he comes. Okay, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Council. First off, I'd like to thank you for considering our application. The Mitchell Fish and Game Club provides a really valuable outdoor space and activity area for a lot of municipal residents. What we're asking for tonight is we're looking at doing some retrofits to the clubhouse, which is currently underutilized, and we would really like to use it more in the future. And installing some kind of solar power off-grid solution for us seems to be the most feasible thing. We don't currently have hydro service at the club, and so we're faced with the costs of either bringing a hydro service in or running something off grid, and I think that makes the most sense. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, questions for Chris with regards to his application? Councillor Murray?
I'm just curious, Chris, who actually owns that property that the Fish and Game Club is on?
The County of Perth does.
Nicholas, go ahead.
Chris, could you give us an idea of some of the uses that you would use at this facility, maybe age groups, who it's applicable to, and the activities that would go on there?
The idea would be we would of course use the clubhouse for our regular monthly meetings, but we usually have several open houses or public event days through the year that have occurred in the past. It would be used at our fishing derby. We usually have a family day event. We also have intentions of reviving hunting courses and that sort of thing there. So it would be for youth and adult alike.
And can I follow up on that?
Yep, yeah, go ahead, Nicholas.
Is there any other youth or adult programs that you offer that might not use the clubhouse or use it as a secondary use, but use the whole facility that you have there currently?
Like other community
Like,
groups?
Yeah, or like archery as an example. I thought I could think of one.
We do have the new archery program that we recently started. And that's going well, and we plan to expand that. We also have in the past lent out our facilities to user groups like scouting and that sort of thing. And the clubhouse is getting to the point where it needs a little bit of work. It needs hydro. It needs a little bit of ventilation. So in order to kind of reintroduce some of those activities, we need to do something.
Thank you.
Councillor Harold.
Thank you. Chris, do we have some estimates of what the cost difference is to bring electricity in there, whether we bring it from the road or produce it through solar? Do you have some numbers for that?
We don't have quotes in hand for that sort of thing right now. We're in the preliminary phases of this. We know that there's got to be money spent. And I think we're all of the mind that we would like to pursue something sustainable rather than spending money on poles and wires and hydro service.
Chris, do you, the other organizations that have presented tonight, and I could be wrong, but I think they all do, they have, we have access to a financial statement of their organization. Do you have a financial statement that you can give us?
Not with me, but
no,
you know, I can provide that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, that would be great. I think if we could have it when we do our deliberations on this, it would be just nice to have. Any other questions for Chris with regards to this application? There was talk, and I'm trying to think, Chris, whether you are or you're not, but there was talk of you trying to get a charitable number to be a charitable organization. Did that ever happen?
We're technically a not-for-profit corporation.
Okay.
So we haven't gone down the road of becoming charitable.
Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. Anybody else? Okay. Looks good. Thank you very much, Chris, for your presentation. And we're not going to probably deliberate these grants tonight, but we just tried to give everybody an opportunity to do a bit of a sales pitch for what they wanted. So I do appreciate you coming tonight and giving us the information on that.
Thanks very much.
Okay, the next one up then is the Broadhaven Chamber of Commerce, and we have Robert Benaways on the call here. And I see Robert's name and he's unmuted. So Robert, I'm going to turn the floor over to you, and you can tell us what wonderful things we're going to do with the grant.
I think we're just going to try to survive for a little bit longer. That's one thing. I don't know if everybody probably knows there that Broadhaven is run like it's actually a West Perth building, but it's run by volunteers. So we've been handcuffed in the last 2 years of not being able to be open. So we had a grant early last year, which got us to this point, but right now we're down to $1,715 in the bank account. We thought we were going to be able to open in January, but Omicron came across, and now God knows when we're going to open up. So we had spent money to get open. We had to do some plumbing issues, and we fixed some lights, and we're ready to go basically, except, well, now one of the big things will be stocking up again, because all our stock is gone. So everything has to be restocked. So what this money is going to be used for now is we got enough money to pay the hydro for 2 months. So we need money after that to keep going. And if we're going to be around we need to just survive a little bit longer here. So that's basically in a nutshell what I'm put the thing in for. So anyway, back to you.
Very good. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, I think everybody's aware of the last 2 years, and apparently it was on the news tonight. It's 2 years ago today that that COVID hit London and Middlesex, anyways, that we were aware of it. So, yeah, it's been a tough go, and it's been like a roller coaster up and down. That you kind of start to open up, and then we close back down again. Anybody of council have any questions for Robert with regards to the grant for the Broadhaven Chamber of Commerce? Robert, do you have, and I know it's impossible, but do you have any tentative bookings for later on in the year?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say next. Right now, like because of the unknown, we have no bookings right now. So
okay, yeah, it's hard to know what to do.
Just a
but
minute, Betty's right beside me. We have 2 tentative bookings, I guess. So.
yeah, okay, no, that's good. I just wondered how you carry on. when
Two
you-
weddings for the upcoming summer.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know, like we had Diane from the Country Cavaliers wanted to have a dance, but when can we have it? We don't know, eh? So that would maybe be one of the first Broadhaven events that we have, but we don't know when that can happen or not. So
Yeah. Right. No, I hear you, Robert, and appreciate your concerns. Last call for anybody on council for questions for Robert. Okay, I think we're good, Robert. Again, thanks a lot for your presentation here tonight, and appreciate you taking time out to explain what's going on.
yeah, okay, no problem. Let's hope this COVID thing gets done with. So
That's right. Okay, next presentation is Upper Thames School. And I'm not sure if we have 2 presentations or 1 presentation with 2 people. Anyways, Justine Nader and Nikki Watt are here, and I see they're on the screen. So I will turn the floor over to you 2 ladies, and you can explain what you would like to do with the grant from the municipality.
Okay, thanks, Walter. So Justine and I are co-chairs of the Parent Council for Upper Thames, and we also help run the playground committee. So we are looking for funds to build a new playground. This past year, the junior playground was removed. It was past date, so they just come and take it down. So the government of Ontario provides funding for education, but they don't provide funding for any recreational facilities at the school. So all of our funding has to come from us, basically, what we can raise in the community. So we've done our best, but with kids not being in school and then us not being allowed to go in the school to run events, the fundraising efforts have been a big struggle. We've had a good turnaround from the community, and we're really happy with how everyone's supported us so far, but we're still a ways away from our goal, and we kind of would like to have an end in sight to get these kiddos a new playground. So that's what we're reaching out to you for.
Okay, thanks, Nikki. Justine, anything further to add?
No, I think she did a great job. The only thing I was going to add with the playground from Upper Thames, it would be great because day camps could use it in the summer, and kids and families can use it when school is not on.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So I can't resist. I've got to ask, is there no federal grants?
I knew that question was coming. He tells me not.
Okay, that's good. Any questions from members of council? What do they do with the old playground? Like they just scrap it? Is that what happens to it? Just take it down and scrap it?
As far as we know, yeah, once it gets to a certain date, they just say it's deteriorated enough and they just come and take it down for.
Yeah. Okay. Nicholas, go ahead.
So you said no funding would come from the province for that. Could you give us an idea? Is it then 100% has to be fundraised for, or is there some funding from some portion of the school or school board?
No, it all comes from us fundraising 100%. Any community event that we do or donations from the community members is how we have to fundraise for this playground.
So there wouldn't be a playground if there wasn't fundraising, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
What's the life expectancy of the playground? Like there must be a time frame that they know when they're going to come and it's expired its useful life and they take it down. Like, do you have any idea how long they last?
I don't. I'm trying. That playground did it come from?
It came from Mitchell Public.
Yeah.
Oh,
If that gives you an idea of.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions on that? Or any further information that you want with regards to that request? Okay, I don't see anybody putting their hand up. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight. And as I said previously, we're not going to debate this tonight. It's just to gather information at this time. And then when we get into budgets, we'll have a go at it and see how we're going to fund all these requests that we have for tonight. So thank you very much. Meanwhile, I think I would work on federal grants if I was you. Okay, I don't have any.
Can I just add about the process, Mayor McKenzie? So not on the last one, but rather on the overall group of presentations. I just want to mention that the next steps will be that these presentations that you heard will be summarized up into a table, and this will be brought back for deliberation through the budget process when we do budget deliberations. Wendy or Dan, please feel free to jump in and add anything if you wish. And the one thing I want to highlight is there was one request, the Broadhaven Chamber request, indicated that they were looking for some relief money and waiting until we do final budget approval in March, maybe longer than they're able to wait just by Robert's comments there. And I would note that normally we send Broadhaven 3,000 or 3,500. I'm trying to recall which. On a regular basis, they're asking for an enhanced amount this year, but if council was comfortable with either releasing their normal amount as a part of their base, and we could release that sooner, or if council would prefer to approve the whole Broadhaven amount at this time. I'm just wondering if council wants to consider perhaps making a decision on Broadhaven to meet their request for some relief funding. And I just put that on the floor, and I'll let the mayor administer any discussion if there is any.
Okay. Question, Jeff. At what point in time, the date, when we'll be dealing with grants as part of the budget?
Wendy, you'll have to remind me. It's not the February meeting, but the final meeting in March, I believe.
Yeah, we can make it the final meeting in March.
Okay, so that's hitting it pretty fine for Broadhaven if we left it go until that time. So, Deputy Mayor Wright?
We do have COVID relief money now. I'm not sure how much we have left because this, to me, is directly based on COVID problem. We do have, Jeff will be able to tell us how many $10 or $10,000 we have in our COVID relief fund. Could we have that number from her or Wendy, him or Wendy?
Wendy,
go ahead.
I don't have the exact amount, but the security for the recreation has consumed most of that money, if not all of that money. But we can definitely take a look at that.
And what I'll add is that I anticipate that we are going to be spent on COVID relief money, and especially because of the security for recreation. If we had any left from loss of revenue or extra expenses in 2021, it will be gone. We just haven't got that final report ready for you. There may be COVID relief money in 2022. AMO is lobbying very hard for the province to work with federal government to provide an additional allocation of COVID relief, but I wouldn't count on it. I think it's a good possibility, but I think we can't assume it will happen, and I don't believe we'll have an answer before we make our decision on the budget.
Okay, so you've heard the comments from Wendy and from Jeff. What is your wish? Do you want to deal with that request or part of that request right now? Or would you like a little bit of time to think about it? And we could deal with it certainly at our first meeting in February if you want, or at our next meeting. It's your call. Nicholas had his hand up. Oh, I didn't see that. I saw Dean's hand up, but no, go. Nicholas, go ahead.
I'm sure by the number of hands, it is let's forward some the typical funds, 3,000 or 3,200 to keep the lights on, to keep the heat on, and then we can consider the rest at the normal budget time.
Sure. Okay. Dean, you had your hand up.
I would concur with Councillor Zink on making a motion to that regard.
Okay. Did anybody else have their hand up? Murray did. Sorry.
I would second Dean's motion on that.
Okay. So I guess that's how we should do it. Probably is by motion that that we do give Broadhaven their usual $3,000 grant, and we'll deal with the other at a later date.
And I'll just get Wendy or Dan to confirm. It's 3,500?
Yeah.
3,500 should be what you put in the motion.
Okay, so the number will be 3,500. So Dean has indicated he would move that, and Councillor Rose has indicated he would second that. Any further discussion on that issue at this time? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any, that is carried. So just before we move on, just want to maybe explain how we did this process this year. There was, I believe, emails or letters sent out to all the organizations in the past that we have donated to, or that we had a list of. And then that was followed up, and actually the date was extended. And so that's how we came up with the group here tonight. Now, I do realize that there's probably a few that there's some that we've maybe dealt with in the past that aren't here, but it's my understanding that everybody was contacted and knew that what we were going to do, and this was the night that we were going to do it. And tonight's really just to put a name with a face and exactly gets a little bit further information on what they would like to do with the grant or what they're going to use it for. So that's how we came about to be where we are. Dan?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just add that the grant was made publicly available to any organization. So while we did reach out specifically to the groups that requested in the past, this was available to any organization in the community to make a request for.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions on the process so far? Okay, so we do have a public meeting, and I would recommend that we get a motion that West Perth Council adjourn at 7:34 for the purpose of a public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. We have a mover and seconder for that, Councillor Matheson and Councillor Rose. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we call this public meeting to order at 7:35, and the public meeting is held in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest by any member of council? At this time, then I'll ask Clerk Hobson for the purpose of the public meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this public meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Perth is to review the application for a proposed amendment to Bylaw 100-1998, the zoning bylaw of the Municipality of West Perth, and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to the application. Council will not make a decision on the application at this public meeting. Based on the recommendations and information received at this public meeting, an amending zoning bylaw will be presented for approval at a regular council meeting later this evening. If any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on the application, they are to provide their name and mailing address and email to me, the clerk, this evening via email at clerk@westperth.com. A person or public body may appeal a decision if they have made an oral submission at this public meeting or a written submission to council prior to the passing of the bylaw. Notice was given by mail to all landowners within 120 meters of the lands affected by the bylaw and to those agencies as prescribed by regulation. A sign advertising tonight's meeting was posted on the property on January 3rd, 2022. Correspondence received following the posting of this notice will be presented by the planner, Susanna Reed. And I would just add at this time that the applicant agent, Doug Riem, is not in attendance.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Thanks very much. So this is a public meeting for a zoning bylaw amendment. The application was initiated by Doug and Donna McIntosh and affects the property described as Lot 25, Concession West of the Mitchell Road, Fullerton Ward, Municipality of West Perth, 5381, line 16. I will now call upon Susanna Reed, planner for the Municipality of West Perth, to review the application. Susanna?
Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie. This property will be familiar to council. You recently considered a severance application that was filed B4021. And I have a few slides just to walk you through the application. So this is the location of the subject property south of Fullerton. And this is the property that's owned by Doug and Donna McIntosh. So the consent application, this is the house that's on the property. And the consent application was a surplus resident severance application to sever the house from the farm. The entire property is at 90.5 acres. The severed parcel is 1.53 acres and the retained land is 89.2 acres. So this is a standard condition for a surplus farm dwelling severance that the retained land be rezoned to an A-3 zone to restrict the construction of a residence on the farmland, and that the severed lot be rezoned to an A-1 zone to recognize a house that's not accessory to a farm. So the report reviews the planning policies. I won't go into those in any detail, but I'm certainly available to answer questions. And the planning department's recommendation is that the application for rezoning be approved. I'm not aware of any comments that were received for the public meeting.
Okay, thanks, Susanna. So at this time, I will ask if there is anybody wishing to speak in support of the application other than the applicant. And I don't see anybody. Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to this application? And again, I don't see anybody else online. Any comments or general comments or questions from council with regards to this zoning? Okay, I don't see anybody putting their hand up either. So I would like to thank those in attendance for their comments. Should council proceed with the adoption of a zoning bylaw amendment, notice of passing will be provided as prescribed by the Planning Act and a 20-day appeal period to the Ontario Land Tribunal. At this time, if there's nothing further, motion that the Council of Municipality of West Perth now closes this public meeting at 7:39 p.m. and reconvenes into a regular council meeting. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Tam and Councillor Matheson, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. All right, the next item then is a planning report, and Susanna is going to walk us through this, and it's an application for a plan of subdivision, West Perth Plan 2101 by 789274 Ontario Inc., which is BNS Construction. So Susanna, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor McKenzie.
During an April campaign appearance in
So I have a few slides for this application as well. This is a plan of subdivision application. So the property is in Mitchell. It is 1.78 or 1.72 hectares. This is the location of the property. It fronts Wimpole Street and it's between William Street and Park Lane. It's a 1.72 hectare property, which is 4.24 acres. It's surrounded on the west side by vacant land that's designated residential in the official plan, and residential uses to the north and to the south, and the Mitchell Nursing Home is on the east side of the property. Here is a photo of the vacant land that's proposed to be developed, and this is the location that I was standing on Wimpole Street when I took that picture. Here's an air photo of the property, which gives you a good understanding of the configuration of the lot. So the developer is proposing, or is, at this point has applied for 21 lots. Each of these properties would be developed with a semi-detached structure. So there would be 42 units proposed to be built in this plan of subdivision. So you can see that the property, the lots will be accessed via Wimpole Street and an extension of Anderson Lane that will come from William Street to Park Lane. I think those are all the slides I have. So just some additional comments. From a process perspective, this application for plan of subdivision was circulated to neighboring property owners and agencies for their review. That was done in October, circulated on October 13th, 2021, and a notice was posted on the site. We reviewed the comments that were received, forwarded them to the developer, and we are now bringing the application to West Perth Council together with the comments that have been received for your comments prior to a public meeting, which is proposed to be on February 17th, 2022 at County Council. In order to support the application, a functional servicing report, a planning justification report, and a stage 1 and stage 2 archaeological assessment were submitted. And we have reviewed the application in detail with the municipal staff, as well as BM Ross, Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and together with that team, the municipality has developed conditions which are included in your package. Those conditions were also sent to the developer's consultant, Dave Hannum at Zelenka Priamo. And Dave is here tonight as well to answer any questions that council may have, as well as the developer's engineer, MTE, and Jamie Dick is here from MTE as well. So the planning report reviews all of the planning issues that were considered. So perhaps I'll stop there. And I certainly would be available to answer any questions. What we're looking for tonight from council is direction to continue with West Perth comments and conditions to the public meeting that's proposed to be at County Council on February 17th.
Okay, thanks, Susanna. Before I open it up for questions for council, Dave Hannum, do you have anything further that you'd like to comment at this time?
Good evening, Your Worship. Not at this stage. I think Susanna did an excellent job in summarising the matters. I haven't prepared a formal presentation tonight. I'm pleased to note that staff's recommending that Municipal Council recommends to County Council that the draft plan's approved. We're hopeful of a positive endorsement from Municipal Council tonight. We've reviewed the draft conditions, which we're happy with as well. So I'll leave it at that. And if, as mentioned, Jamie Dick, the project engineer, is on the phone as well. So if council members have any questions, then we'd be happy to answer them as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. Jamie, do you want to add anything at this time?
No, Your Mayor, I don't have anything to add at this time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, questions from council? Any questions at all? Councillor Matheson.
I'm just, if somebody could, where exactly on the lots would the buildings be placed? I'm just curious with the number of units that are going in there and parking, which seems to be an issue in some of our subdivisions now. We're worried about parking on side lots or whatever. Is there the room to be put a vehicle in front of the garage without it extending out onto the sidewalk? And which in this, where would the sidewalks actually go into this subdivision? I guess there's a few questions there.
No, that's fine. I'll let Dave answer that for you.
Let me turn that on so you can see what I look like. In terms of the building placement itself, they are single-story semi-detached properties with an integrated garage. So there's parking within the garage, but there's also parking within the driveway as well. So there's suitable distance between the front property line and the garage to park a vehicle there. In terms of the extension of Anderson Lane, there is a requirement to provide a new municipal sidewalk on the easterly side, or the closest side to town or downtown. Also, there'll be properties fronting onto Wimpole Street. There'll be a municipal street along Wimpole as well.
Does that answer your questions, Cheryl?
Yes, I guess so. I just concerned because I know there's another street in town here where there is semis parked and there's not a lot of room for a vehicle in the driveway with it out actually being out onto the sidewalk. That's what.
Yep. No, there'll be room there. It meets the minimum requirements with respect to those distances.
Okay. So how far in from the sidewalk will the actual garage or house be placed? Do you know how many feet it is?
It's just over 6 meters. So what it said about 18, 19 feet.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Jeff? 21 feet. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Thanks, Jeff.
Any other questions here at this time? No questions? Okay, I do have a resolution here. And I will read it and then we'll get a mover and seconder for it. So the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth received a report entitled Application for Plan of Severance by 789274 Ontario Inc. Plan 339, part of Park Lot 17, RP 44R 2502, Part 1 RP 44R 3625, Part 1 RP 44R 3901, Part 2 Mitchell Ward Municipality of West Perth, and that the West Perth Council recommend to County Council that the file WP 2101 application for draft plan of subdivision submitted by 789274 Ontario Inc. for the lands described as Plan 339, part of Park Lot 17, RP 44R 2502, Part 1 RP 44R 3625, Part 1 RP 44R 3901, Part 2 Mitchell Ward Municipality of West Perth be approved, subject to the conditions and draft approval as listed in Schedule A of the attached. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Murray, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Rose? Questions? Deputy Mayor Wright.
Just the question that's always asked to Dave, affordable housing. Are these going to be $600,000 half semis, or are they going to be $350,000 half semis? I guess that's coming from my committee that I'm on, housing, affordable housing, and homelessness.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle, to be honest, Deputy Mayor. It's a little early to determine what the final price will be. We are in discussions with municipal staff about providing some aspect of affordable housing by possibly utilising the provincial mandate to provide for second dwelling units. We've had a look at these semis, and they can be configured, or they're capable of being configured to provide that option if the future homeowner wants to provide it.
Deputy Mayor Wright again.
Can I speak? Those are 113 foot deep lots. Then to answer Cheryl's questions, you better move them 40 or 50 feet back. If you want to have two families in there, 4 houses, I believe she's talking about the Clayton Street houses, where the car barely fits in the driveway and the sidewalk. So we have a bylaw, you can't park in the winter on the street. We allowed a fourplex over on St. David Street. They park in the Value Mart parking lot all the time. Trust me, I hear it. We should look at parking if we're gonna have 4 or 5 parking cars at one of these houses, we need to know where they can park. And right now on my street, they're digging out in between the houses and putting gravel in there to park, which really probably defeats Bob McLean's bylaw, but that's what they have to do when they have extra people live there. I'm assuming that's the question Cheryl had to ask. Wanted to ask. Thank you.
Yeah, as I said, it's a discussion that we're having with municipal staff there. They want us to explore that option. We're willing to discuss that option, but yeah, you're right. In terms of, we have to be careful what we wish for with regards to fully utilizing that, because every property could want to put a second dwelling unit in, and then it's just a bank of parking along that street. So there has to be a very careful balance between delivering on the higher order sort of aspect of a range of houses. So I understand the desire for it to be affordable as well, but also that balancing act in terms of maintaining the character of the area and ensuring that there's no impact on surrounding land uses as well.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any at this time. So it's been duly moved and seconded. So all those in favor of that recommendation? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, another planning application here. And it's an application for consent to sever by Torview Acres, application number B4721. And Susanna, I'll turn it over to you again.
Thank you very much. This is a consent application. So for consent applications, West Perth is a commenting agent for the Land Division Committee. This property is on lot 23 and 24, concession 2 of Hibbert. You can see the red star is the location of the property just east of Dublin. And it is a farm property that, and these two farms have merged without the intention of the owner. So they were placed in the same title and they merged unintentionally. So the application is to sever them and create two farm parcels. No buildings or structures are proposed. The conditions are in the planning report, and the planning department is recommending that the application for severance be that West Perth recommend to the County Land Division Committee that the application for severance be approved.
Okay, any questions for Susanna at this time on this severance? It's not a surplus farmhouse severance, just a plain severance. Okay, if not, recommendation here is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth received a report entitled B4721, Torview Acres Consent Application submitted by Torview Acres affecting lands described as Lot 23-24 of the Hibbert Ward Municipality of West Perth, and that West Perth Council recommend that the County of Perth Land Division Committee approve file B4721 consent application for lands described as Lot 23 and 24. And this is where there's an error in the or a typo here. It should be concession 2, not concession 3 of the Hibbert Ward Municipality of West Perth, subject to the following 8 conditions. And do you wish me to read the 8 conditions? They're standard conditions that we usually have on a severance. If not, then I will leave it at that. And I would require a mover and seconder at this time to deal with that severance. Moved by Councillor Vink and seconded by Councillor Bell. Any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on then. The next up is Fire Chief's report, and I'll ask Bill Hunter to give us his report at this time.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight's report is the activity report for November and December of 2021. As council can see, call volume back up. It's actually one of the highest in recent years. We did observe a very successful carbon monoxide awareness week, first week in November, and also prepared a lot of items that we were going to put out during our annual holiday safety messaging. One of the high points of the 2 months was we were able to sell the old tanker on GovDeals, and we did receive just over $34,000, which was about a quarter of what the town paid for the truck 25 years ago. So not a bad return after using it for a quarter of a century. I also included some information on the fire siren. Unfortunately, it's still out at the electrical contractor. So we're hoping that it'll be back soon, but I don't have a date on that. One thing that's not in the report, but I definitely wanted to give council a heads up for some good news. We were successful in obtaining a $5,000 grant from Enbridge for fire training material. We took a photo last week, and we will be sending out a media release this Thursday. And if there's any questions from council, I'll certainly try and answer them.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Questions, Councillor Tam.
Bill, just a question about, we've been very fortunate, I think, with the mutual aid agreement lately. Does anybody track that? Like, do we, year over year, do we know what the numbers are, how much people help us or we help others?
Yeah, all mutual aid calls are tracked. There's forms that we have to fill out and send in to the Ontario Fire Marshal.
Okay, I just I feel like we probably owe some people some help. So,
the beauty of the provincial mutual aid plan is it's all reciprocal, so we don't have to pay. But yeah, we've unfortunately, due to the size of some fires, we've certainly called in a lot of mutual aid recently. But things always seem to work out over time, so I'm sure that we'll pay our neighbors back as soon as they need us.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any other questions for Bill at this time? Okay. Recommendation here then is that the Council Municipality of West Perth receives the November-December Fire Department Activity Report as information. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Jankowski and Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thanks, Bill.
Great, thank you.
I had a comment, but I'm not going to say anything.
About
the truck that we got rid of, and I just happened to notice the mutual aid that we were receiving and one of the trucks that was there, but I won't mention it. Okay, moving on. Operation managers report, and we'll think we'll maybe do the report first, and then we have a couple tender recommendations to deal with. So, Mike.
Good evening, Mayor.
If you're here,
Council.
I'm going to deal with your report.
Good
Go ahead.
Mayor, Council. The January's Operations Managers Report, Activity Report, Health and Safety once again for water, wastewater, and roads departments and shops. We completed all of our annual lift safety inspections with minor deficiencies. However, they are all rectified and corrected. Road operations, of course, we're busy dealing with winter operations, grading, and some tree removals, and we'll be anticipating on doing that for the next little bit. Tenders and contracts, we're at tenders right now, and the first one is the tandem dump truck recommendation report. I'll just give you a synopsis of what the report states, because I'm pretty sure that most of you have already read it. Back in November, along with Perth County and Perth East, did a group tender on chassis. And in beginning of December, we received no bids for the chassis tenders. the county then went back to Perth County Council and asked for some direction, and County Council directed them that we would be able to direct negotiate with vendors. Perth County took the lead on the direct negotiations, and we were able to secure a decent price from Highway Western Star. We were able to secure the last final spots in their second quarter build. So the county signed right away, and with the direction of talking to Walter and finding out what the county kind of decided on, what he wished for me to do. And we decided, and it is the best decision, was to enter into that agreement that very day to secure that last build spot. The price of the chassis is 12% higher than what we budgeted in November. However, this next model that will be coming out, and we wouldn't be able to receive pricing until later on in the year and not get the truck until well into 2023. And we are short one truck as we speak right now. That anticipated price for that truck was going to be at 30%. So this is an additional 12% onto what was pre-approved in November. However, it is a really good deal, and at least we got our hands on a unit. So I'm just informing council of what we've already basically agreement we've already signed.
Okay, and while we've signed the agreement, if council is strongly opposed to what has happened, the final say belongs to council. But the reason that we did it was to basically put our name on that last truck, and I'm sure if we change our mind, there's likely lots of other municipalities that'll will grab it up. But it did put our name on it for the time being. So I'll do the motion here, and then I'll ask if there's any questions. So the recommendation is that the municipality of West Perth award our 2022 tandem axle dump chassis to Highway Western Star in the amount of $175,511.40, including our HST portion. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Harold and Councillor Matheson. Okay, any questions on what we have done here? We basically had a day to make that call, and I guess I felt relatively safe in doing that, just for what I said previously, that it did hold it for us, and if council didn't support it, then somebody else could grab it. Okay, if there's nothing further on that, all those in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? Oh, Councillor Vink had a question. Sorry, I didn't see that.
Is that the final cost of the dump truck, or will there be some extra modifications that need to be made?
We still haven't received pricing from Viking Kai's for the dump body and snowplow equipment.
Okay, sorry. Any other questions? Okay, so I did take a vote and it was carried. Okay, next item then, Mike.
So that was 12% over budget, but this is the good news story. So last year we entered in a group tender project with the County of Perth once again, with all the other lower tier municipalities regarding rural resurfacing and paving. And Branco was awarded the contract last year. They were the low bidder by a substantial amount. This December and early January, they offered to the county and to us municipalities to carry their unit prices forward into 2022 for our paving. So this will be an extension of the existing contract with Perth County and us lower tiers. And this gives us a fixed cost well below what we anticipated and budgeted for. So with us increasing the unit price that we received last year of $74, and we're anticipating that the AC price index and using $1,000 per metric ton for the AC index would raise our price another $8.88. So roughly 92 cents per metric ton. We've received estimates from other contractors, and they're ranging. Their estimate was from $90 to $100 per metric ton, with $1,000 AC index, $1,000 AC index also. So the amount of savings that I'm showing you there is the very low end, guaranteed, of 99,000, and it could reach up to close to 206. So for every dollar over $90 a metric ton, it's an additional $16,000 onto our contractor savings. So you can see it's a substantial amount of savings, and we know what we're going into with budget.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So the recommendation here is that Municipality of West Perth participates in the Perth County Contract 2021-031-002 extension and reawarding the 2021 slow tender to Brantco Construction for West Perth's 2022 pre-approved rural resurfacing work on line 46, line 24, and line 21. We have a mover and seconder for that recommendation, Councillor Jankowski, and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Ait. Any questions for Mike on that now? Dean, go ahead. You're muted, Dean.
There we go. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, not a question, just I guess a comment commending Mike and his staff for working out a good deal with the contractor for these projects. Appreciated.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Anybody else? Okay. Looking at Dan, did we vote on that? We got a mover and seconder, and I opened it up for questions, right? So all those in favor of that motion? Oh, okay. Yep, that's good. Nicholas had his hand up fairly early there. No, you're just voting in favor. Good, thank you. Okay. Yep, that's my next thing. So the final resolution that we have here is that Municipality of West Perth accepts the Operations Manager's January report as information. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Tam. Any further discussion on that or any questions? Okay, all those in favor? You had a comment, did you, Mike?
Yeah, sorry, I stepped out of line there. I just want to remind council that those that are signed up for Good Roads, it has been postponed. I'm not sure if you received that email or not. It's been postponed till April. Till April, yeah. And we'll have to see what happens then. I guess whether we're able to have it. They want to have it in person if they possibly can. So yeah, another heads up though is a lot of the vendors, that's our busiest time of the year. So April and all that for all the projects, construction projects starting up. So I'm assuming that a lot of these contractors and vendors will not be now attending. So it's unfortunate. Yeah. Well, if we'd had it in February, nobody would be attending. True. The way it is. Okay, thanks, Mike. Moving on then, Recreation and Facility Managers Report. Darcy?
Thank you, Mayor McKenzie. My first report is my activity report. Obviously, activity has slowed down a little bit at the arena for the last little bit, but we were really excited about what happened in December and the way we finished going into the holiday season. Unfortunately, we did get paused, but we've done a lot of work at the rec center in the off time, and we're excited to start back up on the 31st. We also have the pool capital project closing tomorrow, so we'll have some reports coming in the near future to council for the closure of those two, the RFP and the RFQ. So I'll gladly take any questions.
Okay, any questions for Darcy? Councillor Tam.
Just a question on the siding and the insulation project there, Darcy. It looked like a lot was happening, and then I don't see much going on lately. Like the steel doesn't look like it's trimmed off, and it looks like there's some finishing touches to do.
there is still a fair bit of finishing touches to do. They're waiting on a gutter to be fabricated. Unfortunately, the gutter that was designed wouldn't fit with the way the wall was, so we had to refabricate a gutter, and they're just waiting for it to finish, and then they can start putting on the finishing touches.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Darcy? Deputy Mayor Wright.
Darcy, this is probably, when was the ice scheduled to come out?
It's the first weekend in April. I don't have I can look it up real quick, but
well, I assume that their groups are gonna ask. I left that committee to Sherry. They're gonna ask to have it extended, I believe. I would assume most would. So we'd have to sit down and have a good chat about it after their next council meeting, or maybe two down the road, and see.
Yeah.
I don't know if the kids are starting playoffs right away. I know some of them are.
Yeah, I haven't heard what the OHF has totally decided to do, but any groups that have approached me about any kind of extension, I just said that to provide it in writing, it would go to council, and council could make that decision as that is a service change and cost are affected. So we may see that, but to date, I have not got any written requests.
Okay. Any other questions for Darcy at this time? Okay, I do have a recommendation here that Municipality of West Perth accepts the activity report as information. A mover and seconder for that? Councillor Bell and Councillor Tam. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Okay, the next item then is the Keterson Park Pavilion sponsorship package. So.
Yeah, so sponsorship package, as the report says, we're trying to get it out into February. Right now, we just got to finish the design of the heron for the sponsorship and figure out how many plaques we can sell and just finalize a few things there. So it's not going to go out right away, but I wanted to get it approved by council for when it was ready that we could get it out. It will be on a certain date, so we can kind of have a first come, first serve, and we'll advertise accordingly on our social medias. But that is the plan right now. I'll gladly take any questions.
All right, questions for Darcy with regards to the Keterson sponsorship package? No questions? Okay, if there's no questions, then recommendation is that the Municipality of West Perth approve the Keterson sponsorship package as submitted. Have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Murray and Councillor Matheson. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Darcy. Okay, moving on then. Next is Wendy's report, our treasurer's report, and it's the 2022 insurance premium.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. I just wanted to mention I had it on this meeting to do reserve report, and I just want to give a verbal update that it was deferred. We're hoping to have BDO present here shortly on the February 7th meeting. So I wanted to make sure those were in place before a reserve report came forward. So moving on to the 2022 insurance premium. In the report, it highlights the overall increase being $39,040. With this increase, it's partly due because of the increase in coverage for adding the new fire hall, tennis courts, and the accessible playground equipment. But if there's any other questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Do you have any idea, Wendy, or did you look at it, if we hadn't have, or if we didn't have a new fire hall and the new additions that we've done, how close would our premium have been to other years?
That's a great question. I know I've been talking with Penny and trying to get the total amounts for things. It's just still with the intact before I don't have those documents to be able to present that.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Any questions for Wendy on the insurance? It is what it is. Okay, I do have a recommendation here that Municipality of West Perth direct staff to continue insurance coverage with intact insurance at a cost of $344,802 plus taxes and an additional cyber coverage at a cost of $4,115 plus taxes. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Harold, Councillor Vink. Any further discussion or questions? Jeff, do you want to maybe mention about the cyber coverage? That was something that we got lowered a year ago because of, or the insurance company lowered it, right?
Yeah, I'll leave it to Wendy actually.
Wendy? Okay.
It's better Wendy did the negotiation.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to get 3 quotes. Most municipalities currently are struggling to get a quote, so we were able to fill out the application and get 3. I went with the one that was the best coverage. So we went through various parts of the wording and to understand exactly what was being covered, because it can be really tricky to read those reports. But we ended up going with a company that was recommended by our broker.
Okay.
I don't want to give too many specifics just
No.
because it's
No.
cyber insurance, and I just want to
Yeah.
protect the
No,
privacy.
no, that's fine. That's fine, Wendy. Very good. Very good.
And I will add, Mayor McKenzie, the one thing I do want to add is that, and council will have seen this, you've approved it in budgets the last 2 years. We made a big investment in our backup software, and in our we made a lot of investments in our network, and those are the kind of investments that need to be made to allow us to get the kind of rate that we're getting. So it's the pay me now or pay me later kind of approach to insurance. And we're in good shape, and that's why we were able to get 3 quotes. So we're not getting all of our investment back, but we also get all the utility. So it does show that there's a value to be keeping your technology up to date.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Okay, any further questions? None? Okay, all those in favor of that motion? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item up then is the 2022 Assessment Impact Report. Wendy?
So in this report, it outlines the amount of growth that the municipality saw, and so over $28 million in assessment growth. And in that report, it kind of broke down where we saw those increases, so different various classes. So in that analysis part of the report, if we were to raise the same amount of budget dollars, we would have an additional 113,000 approximately in taxation dollars. If there's any questions on the report, I'll be happy to dive into the report.
Okay, any questions for Wendy on that? If we weren't at 2016 levels, it would look even better, wouldn't it? Okay, recommendation here then is that Municipality of West Perth accepts the 2022 Assessment Impact Report as information. Mover and seconder for that one. Councillor Rose, and seconded by Councillor Murray. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. Thanks, Wendy. Okay, the last one here for Wendy is the donation requests report. And we've already had the presentations tonight, but here's Wendy's report. So Wendy, I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, so in the report, I just kind of highlighted who was applying, the purpose, and the amount requested, just so it was summarized for you guys. I'll gladly take any questions.
Okay, questions for Wendy on that report? Okay, the only comment I had, and I think Wendy probably already has heard it, that you know, it's nice if we're consistent across the board, and you know, if we have the financials, we can kind of compare what everybody's doing, and it's nice if we have those financials as part of their package so that we can look at that and see what's going on. So if there's no further questions, Motion here then that West Perth accepts the 2022 donation requests report as information. Mover and seconder for that. Councillor Trinkowski and Councillor Matheson. All those people in favor? And opposed, if any, that is carried. Good. Thank you. All right, we're down to Dan and the clerk's report. So Dan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. Before Council today are the results of the 2022 election RFP. As Council will recall, we did a RFP approach based on a hybrid election whereby we would have advanced voting done electronically, and on election day we would do in-person polling. And just because of the technology and security and ensuring no double voting and updating voters lists, that was the easiest solution present at the time. You'll note the expense there is about $55,000 to conduct an election in that means. What we're proposing today is that we switch it a little bit, and we went back to all the vendors and discussed this approach. Where would we use electronic and telephone voting throughout advanced polling, and we would make paper ballots available in rare circumstances. Basically, if one was required for various reasons, we would make it available, but it wouldn't be the norm practice. And we could also commit to council that I am aware at the last election there was some uncertainty of the level of assistance staff could provide to those voting and using technology, and we would look to provide a very high level of customer service. This approach then would put our all-in election budget at approximately $19,000, and you'll note that the reserve budget is at $24,000. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, the information is there. And it is that the municipality of West Perth directs the clerk to prepare a bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign and seal all necessary documents to enter into an agreement with votes for the 2022 municipal election, and that council directs the clerk to bring back bylaw 69, 2021 for a second and third and final reading with the necessary amendments to allow for voting online and by telephone with the option for paper ballots in a special circumstances and without the use of tabulators. So that's the motion. We get a mover and seconder, and then we can have a discussion on that. Moved by Councillor Vink, seconded by Councillor Matheson. Okay, so we open it up for discussion. Questions, comments? Councillor Rose.
Can you explain exactly what those special circumstances or whatever it is to get the paper ballot? What exactly is involved and what does that really mean?
Thank you, Councillor. I think it would be requesting one.
And how would they go about requesting one?
Well, when we would do in-person polling, so we would set up kind of voter kiosks similar to, I'm told, as we had in the past election, where you could come in person and utilize technology that's available for you. You could request a paper ballot. We don't want that to be the norm. Obviously, there's a cost, and that's part of the issue with running an election that way is you have to, if you're going to do it fully paper, you have to have more than enough paper ballots. So that's the issue we run into with the initial approach. Whereas this way, if we can kind of provide people with an enhanced level of customer service and maybe steer them to utilizing technology as opposed to the paper, that's the route we're recommending.
Go ahead, Murray.
So when you used, I think the figure was 19,000, is that correct? Is that also factoring in the money it takes to have extra staff to assist people with the electronic voting?
No, not throughout the night. No, it doesn't right now. That's the cost of votes, and we're waiting on quotes for the technology to either rent iPads or computers, and we're going to cost that just utilizing ones we have in house, and we would be utilizing staff through advanced polling. It's during daytime hours. we would set that anyways, or during the regular scheduled work hours. And for election day, we haven't included overtime hours in that budget.
Again, Murray?
So does that mean, so our seniors that are in the area can either go on phone or by computer? That'll be basically what you're saying. They vote, they will not be able to go to the town hall or those other places to do it, correct?
No, they could come to town hall and they could vote on computer at town hall.
Okay.
Or they could, if they were adamant, they could request a paper ballot at town hall.
Okay, okay. Thank you for clarifying.
So when we have this set up, Dan, you can vote in a period of time up until the voting date, or it's just on the voting date?
There would be electronic advance polls available for the week prior to voting day. Generally a 24/7 type of thing. There is an app also available in Votes if that's if an end user wants to utilize the app. Otherwise, then voting day would be the one where we'd be offering the in-person. And part of this approach, there's a couple unknowns administration is dealing with. You know, obviously, one is COVID. If something were to happen and everything were to be in more of a lockdown, we could easily shift gears into a fully electronic one if we had to. Additionally, we have a new building, which is likely going to be the main polling station, and we're not in there yet. So working out the nuances of this search.
Okay, where I was going with my question, I guess, Dan, is what provision do you have that a person could vote previously online and then come in the day of the election and want to vote again? Do you have the capability to see whether they voted or not?
Yeah, no, we do. Yes, with Votes, we utilize a third party, which we've entered into. Previously, we entered into a 4-year contract, so we're coming to the end of that term, and that's VoterView through DataFix, and we have full integration real time with that.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Sounds like Dan's done his homework, yeah? Okay, if there's no further questions, it's been duly moved and seconded. All those in favor of that recommendation? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, anything else, Dan?
Sorry, trying to get my video back. No, for me, that's everything. Thank you.
No, good. Okay. All right, moving on. A couple items from the CAO. So first is joint and several liabilities. So Jeff?
All right, good evening again, all. I just have a couple of quick reports here. I was going to leave these reports in the consent agenda portion, but I want to provide some additional complementary information, and I wanted to make it clear to council that staff are recommending that the Council of the Municipality of West Perth pass a resolution on both the joint and several liability and the next report that we're going to cover about CN Rail and obligations under the Drainage Act. Staff would appreciate or strongly recommend that council approve these resolutions and we take the actions in line with Association of Municipalities of Ontario lobbying efforts that are underway. And I'll speak to the joint and several liability report first. You've had the report. There's a report link there with some background, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. This is an ongoing thing. I think we had Randy Pettipe supporting us previously, I think maybe before the last election, and he got it on the floor and then it died when the election was called. So any questions on this? Okay, so the recommendation is there. I guess, can I start with the recommendation, the now therefore sentence, or can I read the whole thing? Deny that now therefore it be resolved that the municipality of West Perth does hereby support AMO's recommendations, and further be resolved that the municipality of West Perth does hereby call on the Attorney General of Ontario to work with municipal municipal governments to put forward a plan of action to address joint and several liability before the end of the government's current term so that municipalities can continue to offer high quality service to their communities. Do we have a mover and seconder for that resolution? Councillor Jankowski, and a seconder, please. Councillor Vink. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. Opposed, if any? Still carried. All right, the next one then is with regards to CN Rail and the drainage issues, and been certainly following this one along as it maybe doesn't impact us quite so much, but it certainly does some of our neighboring municipalities.
So same thing, Association of Municipalities of Ontario lobbying. I have spoken to a couple of our neighboring municipalities that have CN rail lines, and there are also a number of municipalities that have CP rail lines that are federally regulated railways. CP evidently is looking like they're going to follow the CN approach, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Food and Rural Affairs want to very strongly advocate and encourage CN and CP to fulfill their obligations. So I'm recommending that we pass this resolution. I don't want to leave it unsaid, though, that we're not having any problems in West Perth. Our rail line is owned by Goderich and Exeter Rail. That's the owner on the roll, and they have a provincial regulatory connection, so they're not federally regulated, and we don't anticipate we'll have any problems. So this is really a case of us supporting other municipalities that are having difficulties.
Okay, any questions for Jeff on that resolution? Okay, seeing none, the recommendation is that we support the AMO call to action regarding CN Rail and drainage, and that the clerk be directed to send a letter to CN Rail following the AMO letter template. We have a mover and seconder for that resolution. Councillor Bell and Councillor Matheson. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. All right, moving on to correspondence. We have two items in correspondence. One is from the Sabo Bee Club regarding ditch mowing, and the other one is the Ministry of Transportation regarding our gas tax funding that we got. Any discussion or questions on the correspondence? Nicholas?
I wasn't clear on the gas tax, whether that is new or already committed money.
We get it every year.
Yep.
It's actually more money than what we got previously. Jeff, do you want to comment on the dollar values? Or maybe not. I'm throwing you under the bus here, I know.
Yeah. Wendy actually is going to help me out.
Oh, here's Wendy. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and so I'm going to ask Wendy to answer the amount questions because I know she has them. But I do want to say that, Nicholas, it's a great question because they did talk about the launch of the program, but launch in this case is intended to mean the 2022 launch, and we have a launch every year, so it's not new.
It's not new.
Even though that you might get the impression it's new because of the language, and that's just the way it is.
So yeah, just to answer the dollar value, last year we got 31,307, and so it is significantly larger than what we're receiving this year of 45.
And that money goes to the mobility bus, if I understand right.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions for Wendy on that then? Okay, if there's no questions on that, the recommendation is that we accept correspondence as information. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, and seconded by Councillor Murray. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That just let's just that again. I think it's carried, but all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Yeah, sometimes there's a bit of a time delay when you put your hands up, and I think it's the internet and just the speed that we have. Councillor Murray.
I do have a question actually for Mike, if he has a minute, with regarding the ditch policy. Are there rules in place as to what can be planted in the ditch area, so to speak?
No, there is no current rules. We just basically are trying to deal with the noxious weeds.
Right. So if let's say I, as a landowner, between the road and the ditch, if I wanted to plant a swath of wildflowers, I can have it asked not to be mowed or not to be sprayed. Is that allowed at this moment?
Yes, you can ask for it not to be sprayed. The mowing would become an issue regarding the visibility. If it doesn't hinder visibility, whether it's someone entering or exiting a laneway or sight lines, then we would permit that being in place.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
No problem.
So, Mike, what width do we cut with the mowers?
It's an 8-foot mower that we have on, and so our main paved roads, we do at least one swath, and we try to get down as far as we can for a second pass. And then on the gravel roads, we try to get right back to the property lines.
Okay,
they're
good.
fairly more level.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Fair enough. Okay. Moving on then for council reports. Upper Thames has a meeting. I guess it looks like it's tomorrow. Anna Marie, is there anything you want to say at this time?
No, nothing. It's just the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. So unless somebody has something that they need to know.
Okay. Any questions for Anna Marie? Okay, not seeing any. Motion here is that the municipality of West Perth accepts reports from councillors as presented. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Harold and Councillor Rose. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. All right, we do have some bylaws here to deal with tonight. 1, 2, and 3, I guess, 3 bylaws to deal with. So the first one is a zoning bylaw 58 to amend bylaw 100 as amended for the property described as lot 25, concession West Mitchell Road, Fullerton Ward, which is the Macintosh one. The second one is bylaw number 10, 2022, being a bylaw to appoint a treasurer and a deputy treasurer for the municipality of West Perth. And bylaw number 11 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 22, 2020, to provide for collection of actual costs for the improvement of the A drain of the Bodie Municipal Drain. So the recommendation is that Municipality of West Perth gives first, second, and third and final reading to zoning bylaw Z 258, 2022, bylaw 10, 2022, and bylaw 11, 2022. Do we have a mover and seconder for those bylaws? Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Trinkowski. Any questions or comments with regards to those bylaws at this time? Okay, all those in favor of those 3 bylaws? Opposed, if any, that is carried. All right, upcoming announcements or events. Next regular meeting will be February the 7th. And at that meeting, we deal with the council vacancy. And then February the 22nd is a council meeting, draft budget presentation and budget deliberations. And then March the 7th is our next regular meeting. And then March the 28th is what we hope to be final budget approval. Anybody have anything else with regards to that? Okay. We do have a notice of motion with regards to sidewalk winter maintenance, and it's from Councillor Harold. And the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of West Perth direct staff to add winter maintenance to sidewalks starting in the 2022-2023 winter season on at least one side of each street where applicable in the town of Mitchell, and to the 2020 budget for council's consideration, and that council direct staff to prepare a report to council outlining any other possible considerations or solutions that would ensure sidewalk accessibility in winter seasons. And I assume, Councillor Harold, you want to move that?
Yes, please.
And do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Tinkowski, thank you. Okay, I open it up for discussion. Councillor Harold.
I think it's basically everything that I talked about at the last meeting. It's just to provide some safe places for people to walk, whether they're wherever they're heading to. That's all we're trying to do, is just offer a safer spot than forcing them onto the streets. That's all.
Okay. Councillor Tam.
Yeah, I'm in support of Steve's motion here. I think with all the upcoming development and the development that we've had in recent years, that the sidewalks should be cleared in both directions. I think we'll have a higher tax base and more demand for services with the growth every year. I know in front of our house, I think I mentioned before, we have a bus stop and we have a mailbox, and the sidewalk's not cleared. I clear it just from our driveway to the mailbox, and people park in our driveway and go to the mailbox. So it's I think that it should be looked after in all directions.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Wright.
So the other staff to prepare other things, when we talked about this, we talked about also the possibility of making the homeowner do the sidewalk like they do in Kitchener and other cities. What I got to kind of, one side of this says that we're going to go out and buy a new plow and hire one or two people to run it. And the other one says, we know we can't do it on some sidewalks, like on Trafalgar Street, the sidewalk is 3 feet wide, ours is 5 feet. I kind of need to know exactly, we're asking Mike to go out and put the 200,000 in the budget and buy a new machine, or are we talking about the second part, which is other possible solutions? But there's two different ones here, in my opinion. The other solution is maybe it would be we'd vote to have all the people clean their own sidewalk.
Okay.
And I brought that up at the last council meeting, and I got a couple tweets about it, about liability. So we already carry all the liability. So which exactly are we aiming for here? I'm all in for the town to do it, or the possibility of the residents doing it?
Okay, I'm going to ask Mike to comment on this, but I don't know if anybody else has any comments before I get Mike's take on it. Or maybe there'll be some more questions after Mike has his comment. So Mike, I turn it over to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have these numbers in front of you, but I've been busy over the weekend and especially today crunching these areas and numbers and estimates for you. And I understand what council is kind of shooting for here. It's just after my explanation here, I'll hopefully explain to you how I can't possibly do it in the time frame that you're requesting. So right now, currently in 2021 and 2022, we are currently plowing 22 kilometers of sidewalk. And plus, we're anticipating another 1.5 kilometers of sidewalk due to developments and the Ontario Road sidewalk being installed, which will equal to 23.5 kilometers of sidewalk. Currently, we don't plow 11.4 kilometers of sidewalk. Out of these 7 kilometers, out of this 11.4 kilometers, 7 kilometers of this is 5 feet wide. The other 4.4 kilometers is sidewalk, which is 3 to 4 feet in width and diameter. And we currently need 5 feet in order to run our machine safely down the sidewalk to clear it due to its width. Over these sections of 4 foot and 3 foot sidewalk, and which represents 4.4 kilometers, are on road sections that are currently in designed to our old urban cross sections. And what I mean by that is these current road sections do not currently have curb and gutter. The widths are differ. Some of them are not our 66-foot wide road allowance. So when we go and reconstruct these roads, and Toronto Street West is a perfect example of this, we needed to install concrete curbs as the new guideline and regulation. We couldn't design it to our current standards because in order to do that, we would have required clear cutting 27 trees down. So we minimized our road width and came up with a different standard, and we were able to squeeze in one-sided sidewalk in that section. So since 2004 to 2019, in our annual budget, we've been spending $50,000 just to get our current plow route up to standard. And we completed that in 2019. So that totaled up to $750,000 that we spent over that period of time to do and get those sidewalks up to regulation. Mind you that some of that 22 kilometers were brand new developments and extenuations, which we didn't have to do and repair or upgrade. So in my opinion, we have two options to get this 4.4 kilometers of sidewalk into our current standards and widths that we require in order to run our unit and sidewalk machine on. So the first option is doing full reconstructions of these road sections. Currently, we're due about 0.4 kilometers. This is using Georgina's numbers. So right now in 2022, we're doing 0.4 kilometers of reconstruction, and its estimated value is 1.8 million. So in order to do this 4.4 kilometers, I would equal to, I need $19.8 million to do all that this summer. And we physically know that I can't do 4.4 kilometers of road reconstruction in one season or one summer. The other option is to place temporary sidewalk in these sections. And in order to do that would be extremely difficult and expensive. My estimates to remove the existing, cut trees, possibly relocate hydro poles, place the new sidewalk, and then we also have to repair all the driveways. My estimate for this is the low end of 990,000 to about 101.1 million. So that would also then be required under what's been proposed under the motion to have it ready for the 2023 season, 2022-2023 season. I'd have to reconstruct 4.4 kilometers of sidewalk at that dollar value. So it's last year we weren't even able to find, we had 5 broken sidewalk sections of sidewalk that we needed repair for this year's plow route, and we couldn't find a contractor. We begged Pat Kelly and Kelly Construction to do that work for us, just to give you an idea of how hard it is right now and difficult to find concrete sidewalk contractors. Not only that, we have 3.67 kilometers of residential streets without any sidewalk at all. And examples of these are Kells Court, Colton Drive, Eris, Spence, William, and Toronto Street East. We also have 4.32 kilometers of road sections in industrial areas without sidewalk. And a few examples are Cooper, Wellington Street South, and Hibbert. So out of West Perth, not including any of the non-residential streets without sidewalks and our industrial areas, we have 34.9 kilometers of residential sidewalks of our currently plowing 23.5, which represents 67% of the sidewalks. We had a public works meeting at lunchtime today, and our percentage of roads and sidewalks that we're clearing compared to listable and others is on the high end. We are doing 67%, where The others are close to around like Listowel is. I didn't get the numbers from Mr. Couch, but he estimates that they are only plowing 55 to 60% of the sidewalks in Listowel. So I just like you guys to keep all those considerations in mind when you're asking me to do something that I technically almost nearly impossible for me to complete or do.
Okay, we'll open it up for questions, and Councillor Bell has a question.
We have 2 sidewalk machines, right? Am I correct?
Yes, we kept our old spare unit, and we probably use it just as much as our new one. They break down quite regularly. It's a very destructive machine.
Yeah. So is there, and I mean, I'm a country person, so I don't really, I'm not in town that much, but is there a way when our sidewalk clearing guys will drive down the street to get from road to road, where the sidewalks could possibly be cleared? Could they just drive down the sidewalk and do that piece? There's lots of places. Let's take William Street. He drives down William Street to get from section to section. Could he not just clear the William Street sidewalk since he has to go down there anyway?
Yeah,
instead of driving down the road?
We do a couple of those sections. Yeah. Eleanor Street between Napier and Nelson is a perfect example of that. Otherwise, they're pretty much all basically on our route.
Yeah, but yeah, because there's a few places, Eleanor, William, there's a few other ones that were brought to my attention that he drives down the street instead of doing the sidewalk. And could we just, as opposed to making special wherever possible when we're finding him driving down the road, could we just put him on that sidewalk? It would help somewhat.
Somewhat, but then it's easier to say that we only do certain east-west ones, right?
But it's done.
Like what I'm saying is if you decide to say, okay, this guy's going by this one, that's why we're going to do that. Our routes are going to be changing all the time based on developments and where the streets are coming in. So an example is Anderson, right? That'll be new coming in and there'll be sidewalk there. So we won't be driving down really William Street anymore, right?
Okay. Yeah, and that's fair. But I mean, is that a way to help maybe pick up a couple sidewalks here and there when the route is set, instead of driving on the road, just pick that sidewalk and clear it because you got to drive down it anyway as you change your routes? Maybe
getting to basically we're at our max unit for what we're using our current machine for. Doing 23.5 kilometers with one unit and one guy is pushing things. It takes close to 6 hours for him to physically do the route, which is when we're doing the downtown too, which takes another additional 2 hours when he starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. If he starts at 5, he's then done at 1. He's unable, if it does snow during the day or later on in the day, to go back and redo the sidewalks again, because if it's really bad, we do go back out and do the overtime and everything else, but otherwise we're pushing our limits and staffing capabilities to the limits right now.
Councillor Harold and then Councillor Murray.
Thank you. So yeah, Mike, I don't think we're asking necessarily for the same people and the same equipment to do more work, right? So tell us what you would need to do additional work is what I'm asking in that recommendation, right? And secondly, so you tell me there's no sidewalk that we clean that is less than 5 feet currently, is that right? We don't do any sidewalks less than 5 feet, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Just to get to Steve's question, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing that you're wanting to know if we can't do it, is there somebody that you could contract it out? Was kind of your question, Steve?
Yeah, either it's contracted out or we hire another person full-time, part-time. I don't know, Mike. You know those, like you were quoting those numbers off like you got them memorized pretty well. And obviously you've done the homework on it, so I'm not saying you haven't. Just tell us what it would take to do it, I guess is the question. If
And
there are
that's what
some.
I'm saying, Steve, is that in order for me to do all the other sidewalks in town, I need to fix all those under deficient sidewalks, which is 4.4 kilometers of sidewalks.
And you couldn't do them with a smaller machine?
No. Everything is 5 feet, whether it's an MT trackless, Kubota, right? Our wheels actually are over the 5 feet portion, right, by a couple of inches. And we have to make sure there's smooth transitions for our sidewalk machine guide, because everyone who's ever shoveled their driveway or a sidewalk, and if there's a little bit of lip, you remember the first time to make sure that that shovel is never in front of your stomach or your ribs or anything. It stops you in a hurry. And every year we have an incident with our sidewalk machine with one of our operators. It had happened twice last year where they wrap their face or body around the steering wheel when they hit something, or the sidewalk is for some reason is maybe risen during a certain occasion, or they're off a little bit. So that's the main reason why we need 5 feet of clearance, and the proper approaches too, because the machine is so narrow, which is 5 feet, and it is high. The center of gravity is not great on it, and it'll tip over extremely easy if it's not on the proper surface.
Okay, Anna Marie had a question.
I guess I was just wondering about what would it cost then to purchase another machine and have more staff?
So if we had all 5 feet sidewalk and council wishes to clear everything in West Perth, the cost of the unit for an MT, the last price I received was last year, and that was 150,000 for just the unit.
Okay. Councillor Tam.
Yeah, like I don't see it as necessarily having to upgrade all the sidewalks to that 5 foot standard. I think there's certainly a lot more that we can do. And the way I look at it is, if we don't need it this year or next year, 5 years down the road, we're definitely everything's growing, and just like we need more staff every year. So I look at it the same way. It's we're gonna need more capital and more people to run the equipment. So I think that there's a lot more that could be done and should be done. And we should find a way to do it.
Okay, Jeff has a comment.
I just want to mention, I've been helping Mike do a bit of the research on this, because the original question came from a school transportation part, and I want to just add a part that Mike can help me with, and it might also help council's consideration of this. So we spoke to Transportation Services. They receive our winter operations plan every year, and then they plan their bus routes from that. And so the locations that Transportation Services place their bus routes, they really work around those north-south routes that we use the same way we use to get children to and from school. It's mostly north-south, and then we kind of optimize the cross connections so that kids can, you might have to do a little bit of east-west to get to a north-south road, but those north-south routes are the main routes that we plow. The school bus routes, when you look at the map, and they've given us a map that shows the distribution of school bus stops in Mitchell, they key on those intersections and they key on the parts of the sidewalk that we plow. So they are using the information we give us. They're aware, we're aware that if we picked up more east-west streets, that it's going to change from year to year depending on which children you have are school age and what their distances are and what grade they're in. That can change. But really, we try to optimize the network to provide those north-south main throughways and then the east-west connections. And if we were going to add extra, sidewalk plowing east-west, I think that at the time we would generally ask council to do that would be at the approval, or make choices about plowing east-west would be at the approval of the winter operations plan. And I really love the winter operations plan because it saves reactive choices through the process. And I'm not suggesting this is reactive, but it it demonstrates why the operations manager needs to have a winter operations plan to have us on some kind of, this is where we're at. We share that with the school boards, everyone plans for it. And I just want to mention that the school board's approach to sidewalk safety and road safety is something that I didn't realize. And actually the way they approach it, and they did take a look at the Georgina Street stops that we're talking about, and I just want to update council on that message, is that the position of transportation services is that it's up to the parent to safely get the children to the stops where the children congregate. And then where the children congregate and wait for a bus, school bus, the transportation services folks want to have a safe spot for them to stand there. And so they look at every one of the stops to ensure that there's a cleared sidewalk or an area where we'd have a hydrant or whatever, where there would be a cleared space. And that philosophy of the parent responsibility to get the child from the home safely to the bus stop is very much in line with our philosophy of, we got to get kids to the safe part of the sidewalk where we look after it and we really minimize the amount of east-west they have to travel, because most of their travel is the north-south. And I think that transportation service has been through a lot to arrive at that philosophy. And I think having looked at the bus routes and having looked at Mike's winter transportation plan through this different lens, now that we've been asked this question, we really do optimize those east-west connections. And I just want to share with council that there's been a lot of thought put into maximizing those, and to begin to add more, those incremental adds quickly get you into a second machine and another whole staff person. So I just want to lay that all on the table too.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Anybody else? Deputy Mayor Wright.
I was just wondering, if being we've asked Mike a ton of questions about finances and money, if we could put this off, we don't pass our budget until March, and it would only be November and December that this would affect. If we could give, like Emery asked a question, how much it costs, Steve asked some questions. If we could give Mike the 2 weeks with Jeff to come back, see how much a second machine cost, a new blower. We know how much an employee costs. It's easy to factor in, figure it out. I don't know if there's a possible way to figure out how to do the 3-footers. I doubt it. But if we would give 2 more weeks until, when's our budget deliberation? Sorry, 2 weeks, correct?
The final one is in March sometime.
Yeah, there's one in February too.
There is one in February.
We would see
22nd of February.
That's maybe a little long, but even the next meeting, give them to answer the questions of how much everything is. If we want our sidewalks done and it's going to be 3% on the budget, then we'll know for passing the budget, it's 3% and what it's going to be. That's up to council to decide if they want to postpone it.
Well, go ahead, Nicholas.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that I don't need to see $4 to $19 million added to the budget just to say that we have it in there. I would rather see this second part of the notice of motion where we have some other considerations like Doug was just talking about that we can discuss, deliberate over. But I would lean that route, not necessarily putting it in the budget just to see $19 million in there, rather have some sort of report back to give considerations to.
Okay, and I'm still open for any other comments, but following on what Deputy Mayor Wright and Councillor Vink said, Mike tossed out a lot of numbers there, and I know I didn't write them all down, and I just wonder, taking off from Doug, if we could, if it's okay with the mover and seconder, if this could be deferred until a future meeting, and we could get that sent out to us, all the numbers as what it's going to cost, and I think we need to look at that before we can go anywhere. And I'm still, like, I'm not trying to cut the discussion off. If you have some more questions, by all means ask them, but I just think we, unless Dean might be the only one to be writing the information down, but I was looking on the screen and I didn't see anybody scribbling really fast here. So I think we need to look at the numbers here and then have a further discussion down the road. I just throw that out. Dean, go ahead. You're going to tell me you got all the numbers, aren't you?
Well, I got most of them, the big ones anyway. I was more interested if it's possible if we could have a map to show what routes are being plowed now. I understand that majority are north-south with east-west connectors, but I'd be interested to see what the locations are when we have the discussion next time around.
Sure. I don't think that's an unreasonable request. We could also, it's not going to mean as much, but we could also plot the bus stops on there, but they change, you know, from year to year, depending on where the kids are. But certainly we could plot where the bus stops are. I think at this year anyways. Is that would that be hard to do, Mike, just to get a map of the streets in Mitchell and highlight the sidewalks that we currently do?
No, I've already started working on that.
Okay, so if we give you a couple weeks, that would help you out, would it?
Yeah. So the big issue is, as I mentioned before, it's the ones that are undersized in the older sections, like what Deputy Mayor Ait said on Trafalgar Street and all that. If it was possible to run a machine down there, we would, but it's some of those older sections, I wouldn't even almost consider it being sidewalk. They're in really rough shape and condition.
Well, I get calls, and I think probably the rest of you do as well, usually in the spring, and on sidewalks that we already do plow. And, you know, they're rutted up, they've slid off the sidewalk or whatever, and they're all concerned. And Mike's guys are good. They go back in the spring and they fill up the ruts that they created and level it all off. So it happens on a 5-foot sidewalk too. And I can imagine on a 3-foot sidewalk, it'd probably be twice as bad. Any further discussion? Like, I think everybody's kind of in agreement that the information that we got, if we could see it, have it written down, and any other pertinent information, such as Dean said, like maps of where we are, would maybe help us in our deliberations here. Anything else anybody wants to add? So the mover and seconder, and I know Steve moved it. Dean, were you the one that seconded? I can't remember. Yeah, it was Dean that seconded. Okay. Are you okay if we defer this for you know, I'm saying a couple of weeks, but whenever Mike can get this put together.
Yeah, for sure. The recommendation was to prepare a report, so that means in the future.
Okay, so we can just park that resolution for now. Is that okay with the mover and seconder?
Yes.
Okay, we can do that, Dan, can we? Do we need a motion to defer?
Yeah, we can do a motion to defer.
Would that be proper protocol?
I think there's no issue also with the motion. I think, as Councillor Harold pointed out, that we're just looking to bring back the information. If we're worried about it being in the budget, we could maybe amend and just pass the second part of the motion. It's up to the mover and seconder, or if we just want to defer it, that's fine. Well,
I'm just looking for direction. Do you want an actual motion to defer it, or we're okay just to leave it if everybody's okay with that?
I'm gonna try to help the debate here. Sitting back, I like Dan's suggestion. Perhaps if the mover and the seconder were okay with retracting the first part of the motion, but asking for the second part of the motion to be approved now, and then that gives you a report back, and later you may want to refine that first part. But if you do that first part the way it is, I think it's a pretty heavy burden job for the staff person. So if you could drop that first part of the motion and just approve the second part, I think you're getting what you want. But that would have to be up to the mover and seconder to agree. No, the clerk has to take over from there.
Yep. So Steve, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that works well for me. Thanks.
And Dean, you're okay?
Yep. Yeah, let's proceed with getting a report back to council and then we can determine our next steps from there.
Okay, so then we can deal with the second part of that motion then. Basically, if we withdraw the first paragraph, and the second part of that would be that direct staff to prepare a report to council outlining other possibility considerations or solutions that would ensure sidewalk accessibility in the winter seasons. And if we leave the mover and seconder the same, we can take a vote on that, and then Mike can get back to us on that whenever he gets a chance. Is that okay? Okay. Any further comments from the rest of council? Okay, seeing none. Are you in favor of the last half of that motion then? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried then. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll leave it with staff to come back with a report. Okay, good discussion. Any other business at this time? We have no closed session tonight. So if there's nothing further, then the confirmatory bylaw is there. Just have to bring it up here. That bylaw 12, 2022 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the municipality of West Perth. We read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 24th day of January. We have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Tam, Councillor Vink, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. And finally, recommendation that the municipality of West Perth adjourn the council meeting at 9:13. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Timkowski, and seconded by, nobody wants to leave, Councillor Rose. Thank you. All those in favor? That is carried and we are adjourned.